So here we are. In this final part of our series, we're going to put all the pieces together. We're assembling the complete prophetic picture of the final world empire using that framework from scholars Chuck Mistler and Arnold Fukenbomb, and building on everything we've talked about with the Roman Empire's two legs. We're going to start, though, not in the past, but with a dramatic future event. According to this framework, there's an ancient prophecy that describes a war. A war that, when it finally happens, will trigger the most rapid and radical geopolitical shift in all of human history. It's basically the key that unlocks the entire endgame scenario. So here's how we're going to walk through this. We'll start with that cataclysmic war. Then we'll identify the global government that kind of rises from the ashes. After that, we'll pinpoint where its leader comes from. And finally, we'll see how this whole sequence comes to its ultimate conclusion. All right, let's dive in. According to these prophetic texts, a future invasion of Israel isn't just another conflict in the Middle East. No, it's the catalyst. It's the one event that sets everything else in motion. Now, Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39 describe a very, very specific alliance of nations. It's led by a figure called Gog from the land of Magog, which many scholars have identified with the region of modern-day Russia. This leader brings together a coalition of key nations in the Middle East and North Africa, and their objective is crystal clear: an overwhelming military assault on Israel. Well, the campaign fails. And it doesn't just fail, it fails spectacularly. See, the text doesn't describe some hard-fought battle won by clever military tactics. It describes earthquakes, fire, brimstone, leading to total confusion and the complete annihilation of the invading armies, right there on the mountains of Israel. The scale of this defeat is just staggering. The prophecy says it will take 7 full months just to bury the dead and cleanse the land. But as incredible as that sounds, the body count isn't the most important part. What's really significant is the geopolitical fallout from an event like this. Think about it. With this major rival bloc, this Russian Islamic coalition, suddenly and violently just gone, wiped off the world stage, it creates an enormous power vacuum. The main check on Western power consolidation is just removed. So the billion-dollar question is, what fills that vacuum? Well, Daniel saw it in that statue's feet. The Apostle John saw it in a vision of a beast with 10 horns. Both of these prophets, separated by centuries, saw the very same thing rising up to fill this void, a final global superstate. And this is just incredible how two different prophetic books describe the exact same future reality. Daniel saw it as the feet of that statue, with 10 toes made of iron mixed with clay, so strong but also fragile. John saw it as a terrifying beast rising from the sea with 10 horns. Both are pointing to a 10-nation or maybe a 10-region global confederacy, the final revived form of the Roman Empire. So this 10-part government becomes the perfect platform for one individual to make his move. He starts as just one of 10 leaders, but he quickly takes out 3 of his rivals and seizes singular control over the entire global system. This is the person the New Testament identifies as the Antichrist. But where does he come from? Okay, let's get into what is probably the most crucial and really paradigm-shifting argument in this entire framework. It's an idea that completely challenges the traditional Western view of this person's origins. So the argument starts by taking the 2 legs of Daniel's statue completely seriously. You know, the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as Byzantium, didn't fall with Rome in 476 AD. It actually thrived for another 1,000 years, and its territory was the modern Middle East. This simple historical fact is the first pillar of the argument. The second pillar comes from Daniel's own text. When the prophecy really zooms in on this final ruler in chapters 8 and 11, the focus isn't on Europe. The whole story actually emerges directly from the history of the Seleucid Empire, one of the Greek kingdoms that came after Alexander the Great, which was centered squarely in, you guessed it, modern-day Syria and Iraq. And the third pillar is maybe the most specific of all. Daniel 9:26 says that the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. Well, that happened in 70 AD. But here's the kicker. Historical records show that the Roman legions who carried out that destruction weren't from Italy. They were recruited locally, from the eastern provinces of Syria, Turkey, and all the surrounding regions. That means the people of this coming prince were geographically from the east, not the west. So when you put these 3 pillars together, this framework points our attention away from the usual candidates in Western Europe,
away from Brussels or Berlin, and it points directly toward the Middle East. Places like Ankara, Damascus, or Baghdad become the geographic cradle of this final world leader.
Okay, so let's zoom out and see how all these different pieces, the two legs of Rome, the Gog and Magog war, the 10-nation state, and this prince from the east, how they all fit together into one single comprehensive timeline. This really puts the entire arc together. It starts with ancient Rome, the Fourth Empire. Then the east-west split creates the two legs, with two parallel histories, one in the west, leading to modern Europe, and the other in the east, going through the Byzantine and Ottoman empires right to the modern Middle East. Then boom! The Gog-Magog war cleared the board. This allows for global consolidation into a 10-nation confederacy. And from that confederacy, specifically from the eastern leg's territory, the Antichrist rises and seizes total world control. But Daniel's prophecy does not end with a global dictator. That's not the last word. It ends with a final, decisive event that completely changes everything. After describing this entire sweep of human empires, Daniel sees a stone, one cut without hands, meaning it's not of human origin. This stone strikes the statue on its feet, that final form of the empire, and the entire structure, gold, silver, bronze, and iron, is shattered into dust. The whole history of human-led world power comes to a sudden, crashing end. This is the ultimate resolution of the prophetic blueprint. The stone represents the literal, physical return of Jesus Christ to earth. He destroys the final human empire and establishes a divine kingdom that, as the text says, will stand forever. You know, for those who study it, this isn't a source of despair, but of remarkable precision and, in the end, hope. The detailed framework laid out in these ancient texts provides a map, a sequence of events to watch for. It doesn't give us dates, but it definitely gives us a pattern. And it leaves us with a final, really provocative thought. Where are we in its unfolding story?